Hello and welcome to the brewery. A couple of weeks ago I went down to London for BrewCon, so today I'm going to talk a little bit about that event while brewing a Calcommon behind me. So firstly a little bit about the beer. The grain bill is based on a recipe I've used before, but I've tweaked it a bit to use up loads of grains I left over. So about 4.5 kilos of Golden Promise, 400 grams each of Dark Crystal and Aromatic that I've got loads of that I need to use up, 250 of Munich and 100 grams of wheat malt that was left in the end of a bag. So I mash in by underletting using the pump. This is supposed to reduce dough balls, but I'm not sure it makes any difference. It's just easier on this equipment. I bittered with some Pioneer that I picked up from somewhere, not entirely sure where, and obviously Northern Brewer for flavouring and aroma. So, on to BrewCon that was held at Beavertown Brewery in London. It was very busy, so I didn't get much footage and I don't know how good it is, so we'll see how this turns out. I arrived on Friday in time to join the speakers, exhibitors and other judges for food, some Beavertown beers and a bottle share. Well, we had some really nice beers that people had brought along, bottles of sours, but some all sorts of interesting stuff. On the next day it was an early start with judging for the BrewCon competition starting at 9 a.m. Early time to start drinking beer, but a lot of it was good. While we were judging, the exhibitors started setting up and got all their kit and equipment sorted, and everything was prepared for the event. The exhibitors hall was busy from the start with loads of shiny kit to admire, some interesting new ingredients and a fair few samples of beer to taste and ingredients to smell and chew on or whatever, depending on what it was. Both days were two parallel tracks of talks, one in the main event tent and a second set in Beavertown's barrel store, which was very impressive. There were sessions on everything from brewing chemistry to how to make cider, brewing sour beers to beer judging. Later on the first day, Jane and I did a live beer tasting session, which was slightly stressful considering we'd only actually tasted the beer a few minutes earlier, but I think the audience enjoyed it. It was a nice Nipah from Fraser, which was really good. And then it was club night. There was loads of good beer from lots of clubs across the UK packed into a very small tent. As the only person from Manchester, I went from club to club tasting beers and handing out samples of a couple of my own brews, including the barley wine from an earlier video that I will link to above. Hopefully if I can make that work. And then it was time for bed. The next day started early again with even more judging to try and get the competition completed. Unfortunately that meant I missed a lot of the talks on that day, but I heard good things about all of them. I ran another session of live beer judging later on in the day, this time on my own. The session went well again, but I think it would have been better if we had a beer with something wrong with it. In both these tasting sessions we had a beer that we purposefully miscategorised, so in the first session we described a Nipah as a pale ale and judged it as that. In the second one it was a Czech lager that we pretended was a Pilsner, just to give us something to talk about, but a much more flawed beer would be, well, it would be easier to talk about. Then for the final part of the event, which was the awards ceremony, Steve Smith won first place overall with the best bitter and Fraser won with the champion brewer for having, well, lots of good beer. My barley wine was second overall, which was nice way to end what had been an excellent event. The whole weekend was amazing as usual with a good mix of talks and traders. If you haven't been to one yet, I really recommend you trying to get to a BrewCon event next year. Well, that's it for this session and I will see you in another video.